I don't think Joe Biden was in charge when he was
2
sworn
years ago.
in. I don't think he was in charge of his faculties when he was sworn in 2021.
Obviously has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal
Great
observation.
lie.
Now the whole world knows it.
He has not been in charge for some time. He is still the sitting president until noon tomorrow of the United States.
We're not going to see anything.
No, he's going into very private life.
Yes.
Oh, he's got a cabana somewhere nice and warm and sunny, and we're not going to see that dude ever again.
MSNBC, which is struggling, and that's an understatement, they had Biden's farewell interview. It was beaten by South Park reruns.
Administration, as you can imagine, by all accounts that we can observe, like the article, 200 EOs on the first day. And this is the difference. We've been saying this for years. We've been making jokes about the fact that, Joe Biden's administration is weakened at Bernie's. We've all known that he hasn't really been in charge. He's not the one coming up with these policies. He's not the one hiring. Can you imagine Joe Biden of 15 years ago? Do you think that Joe Biden of 15 years ago would hire the freak parade that became his administration? Some of these characters out there.
You've heard him talk pre-administration. The answer is no.
No. No. Here we go. Here's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson from my great home state of Louisiana.
I do stand, and I say this without any personal animus at all. I mean, in some ways, I actually kind of feel sorry for Joe Biden. I mean, he's in the twilight years of his life. He is not, obviously, has not been in charge for some time. And I know this by personal observation.
Great lie.
Now the whole world knows it.
He has not been in charge for some time. He is still the sitting president until noon tomorrow of the United States, and he has not been in charge for some time. And I have posited that I don't think Joe Biden was in charge when he was
2 years
sworn
ago.
in. I don't think he was in charge of his faculties when he was sworn in 2021.
Well, I do think there's certainly been a decline since then.
Yeah.
Rapid decline.
I was going to say 22, it started to become really apparent. 23, it was a joke.
During the campaign in 2020, observationally, you could see he was declining. That was already there, and it was fairly significant that they were trying to hide.
Year and a half since I've had this
Can you
position.
tell us a story when you say personal observation? What kind
Well, I
of
mean,
thing did you see?
it's public now because the Wall Street Journal got it and put it on the front page. But January a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, I had been asked. I became Speaker in October 2023, and there were all sorts of big national security concerns and everything going on. And I started requesting a meeting with the president because, I'm kind of old school. I'm a constitutional law guy. Speaker of the House should be able to talk to the president, especially in times of great national interest and calamity.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let me meet with him, and his staff kept giving me excuses. This went on for like 8 or 9 weeks. I'm sorry.
I just want to key in on that. They wouldn't let me meet with him. This went on for 8 or 9 weeks.
Insanity.
Let me go back to what I just mentioned a minute ago during the 2020 election campaign. What were they doing with Joe Biden? They were hiding him. His public events were very controlled. They kept him in his little house in Delaware. When he would show up to an event, there was barely, and like you had maybe 20 people there, and 19 of them were press and staff. They kept him well hidden. They didn't want to expose him that much. And again, this was in 2020.
Man, don't forget that all of the people running against him in the Democratic primary suddenly dropped out all together on the same day.
Right. Yep.
Hey, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't have time. What are you talking about? I'm second in line of the presidency. He has time. I need to talk to him. We had, I can't say the classified parts, but we had some big national concerns at the time that I was losing sleep over. Finally, I just went to the Hill press corps and I said, the president is not being allowed to meet with the speaker. There's a problem. So they started putting pressure on him. Long story short, they finally relented. They invited me to the White House. I show up and I realize it's actually an ambush because it's not just me and the president. It's also Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem, the CIA director, everybody. And then so I walked in the Oval and, I know what this is. They're going to
shakedown.
the speaker on Ukraine funding. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
This is probably third week of January. We sit down, we're in the midst of it, and the whole conversation, and I'm going, we don't need to have this conversation. The president reaches over just like this. We're sitting right next to the fireplace in the Oval, and he grabs my arm and he says, the speaker and I just need a couple minutes together. Would y'all just leave us alone? And I looked up on the faces of some of the staff standing around the wall, and they're like,
Why is
no,
a
he didn't." So
ghost?
he called.
Now, remember the names that he just mentioned. You had Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris was in there, CIA director, Hakeem Jeffries, I guess is who he's talking about. He's like, and these are the people he's like, he looked up and like all their faces, they just drained. And they're like, because they,
Yeah, it was Taylor Swift's press corps.
yeah. Taylor Swift.
Called it. He's the commander-in-chief. So everybody leaves, and he and I are standing awkwardly in the middle of the Oval Office, right over the rug by that coffee table. And I said, Mr. President, thanks for the moments. This is very important. I got some big national security things I need to talk to you about that I've heard, and I think you know, and what do we do? But first, real quickly, Mr. President, can I ask you a question? I cannot answer this from my constituents in Louisiana. Sir, why did you pause LNG exports?
Just so you know, LNG is liquid natural gas.
Yeah.
Down here in Louisiana, along the Gulf Coast, Texas, that's big industry. That's a multi
That's your oil
billion
fields
dollar.
for Louisiana.
Yeah, LNG,
Natural gas.
liquid petroleum, but LNG is big too. So this is what he's asking about. He's like, Mr. President, there's a question I cannot answer for the voters in Louisiana, and it's, why did you pause by executive order? Why did you pause LNG exports? Because that's what we do in Louisiana.
To Europe. Like, I don't understand, liquefied natural gas is in great demand by our allies. Why would you do that? Because you understand, we just talked about Ukraine. You understand you're fueling Vladimir Putin's war machine because they got to get their gas from him, And he looks at me.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is that Europe is a big importer of our LNG from here along the Gulf Coast. So we were shutting down. Remember, this was in the middle of when they're sending bajillions of dollars to Ukraine in federal aid, and they're shutting off the LNG supply coming from the Gulf Coast in America.
I'd never heard about that.
Apparently.
Stunned with this, and he said, I didn't do that. And I said, Mr. President, yes, you did. It was an executive order, 3 weeks ago. And he goes, no, I didn't do that. And he's arguing with me. I said, Mr. President, respectfully, could I go out here and ask your secretary to print it out? We'll read it together. You definitely did that. And he goes, oh, you talk about natural gas. Yes, sir. He said, no, you misunderstand. He said, what I did is I signed this thing we're gonna conduct a study on the effects of LNG. I said, no, you're not, sir. You paused it. I know. I have the export terminals in my state. I talked to those people this morning. This is doing massive damage to our economy, national security. It occurred to me, Barry, he was not lying to me. He genuinely did not know what he had signed. And I walked out of that meeting with fear and loathing because I thought, we're in serious trouble. Who is running the country? I don't know who put the paper in front of him, but he didn't know.
Oof.
Dude.
Confirmed. I mean, and this is my point. We have talked about this for forever.
That's horrible. That's scary.
That's where we're at.
That's scary.
But it just goes to show you. I mean,
I believe Biden in that situation, though. That's the really scary part. Is someone said, I have here an initiative to take a look at natural gas resources and what we're doing to extract these, blah, blah, blah. Just sign it and we'll put this into place. And he goes, oh, yeah, that sounds good, and signs it. And little did he know, he paused export.
yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, I just...
Listen, when the FBI agent said these document removals by Biden are definitely prosecutable, but you can't send this guy to trial.
Right.
Forget about the politics of it. Why it was okay for him and not, doesn't get much more frank than that. And yet they all lied. They lied.
Yep.
And did he ever really actually decide not to run for re-election himself? Did he actually ever make?
Oh, no, he got put down. Are you kidding me? Come on.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
they put him out to pasture a long time ago.
The only surprising part of the story from the speaker is that somebody in the room didn't say, no, Mr. President, we're going to stay here. I'm shocked that nobody just overrode him and say, no, we'll stay.
Yeah, the vulture on the gargoyle just... watching.
What was the costume? The bunny rabbit. I'm surprised the Easter bunny rabbit didn't come in and say, no, Mr. President, remember, everybody stays with you.
Yeah, I'm just...
It's the Truman Show, dude.
What I'm most curious to see is how long is it going to be after tomorrow, after Joe Biden's officially out of the office, how long is it going to be before we really see even greater decline in health? I wonder how rapid it's.
We're not going to see anything.
No, he's going into very private life.
Yes.
Oh, he's got a cabana somewhere nice and warm and sunny, and we're not going to see that dude ever again.
Well, and the reason there's an additional reason
I think y'all are right.
Until we do another Jimmy Carter type funeral thing that happened, we're not going to see Biden again.
And by the way, we don't want that for a very long time. Well wishes for physical health. But that said, the other reason is MSNBC, which is struggling, and that's an understatement. They had Biden's farewell interview. It was beaten by South Park reruns in ratings. There's no motivation in any way. There's no political motivation. There's no ratings motivation to have him back. He is riding off into the sunset on less than a whimper.
Yeah.
I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree with that. I think that's the bottom line of it all is that people just don't care. They didn't when we saw, the campaign rallies 4 years ago for Biden, and nobody was there. I mean, by especially compared to Trump. I mean, I think the biggest rally I ever saw that Biden had was maybe a few hundred people. I mean, they kept him out of the light. They kept him out of the limelight. The enthusiasm for Biden as an individual has just never been there. It's why he has had so many unsuccessful attempts over his 40-some-odd year career to even get the Democrat Party nomination. He's never even come close. This was just served up to him back in 2020.
Precisely because of his reduced functionality.
Right.
He was meant to be a figurehead who would not get in the way of decision makers taking the presidency where they want him to.
I think it's very telling that at the end of Biden's tenure as the commander in chief, I feel nothing but sympathy. It used to be a different feeling, but now at the end of it, I feel nothing but sympathy, sadness, a little bit of I don't know what the word is. It fails me.
Pity.
It's pity. Yeah, it's sympathy. It's pity. It's sadness. It just sucks.
Our White House was an assisted living facility, and it's no wonder the country went to crap.
Yeah, it was gross. This whole thing was really gross, and I hope we can mature.
Well, I mean, we always depend, no matter what rules we make, no matter what structures we put in place, we're always depending on a level of trust and responsibility and statesmanship from people in positions of power. Mm-hmm. We cannot regulate it. There's only so many ways you can make rules. If at the end of the day, people with this kind of responsibility are going to be so reckless with it and so cynical about exercising it, we're doomed.
Yeah.
We're doomed. And then the last 4 years of it, especially the last 2 years and even more so the last year and even more so the last 3 months, have demonstrated just how real that prospect is.
It felt like Doom. It felt like the video games I played when I was a kid, when there was a puppeteer, sitting behind a dark cell government. That's what it felt like to me as a young American. It's a horrible prospect.
And the good news is they tried, as I said earlier in the show, the greatest communications effort ever to control the American people. They went full Orwell, and it failed.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.